Both Olivier and myself are within the role of solution architects, pre-sales in CTG, more specifically within the applications and information from CTG. But we'll see that more in the slides. So the ideas today that we present, first a bit our organization, CTG, and later on the most interesting part, of course, will be Olivier giving some insights on one of the challenging projects we're working on right now, named the Digital Open Science Project. So CTG is an organization that's worldwide available. We are very proud to be receiving the Great Place to Work certification also this year, so multiple years in a row. So it's a nice place to work. CTG is a global organization, so we have a footprint almost everywhere around the globe. You can see some of the locations that we are active on this slide. Our headquarters is in Buffalo, New York. CTG has over 4,000 employees around the globe, and we have more than 20 offices worldwide. So Olivier and myself, we are both from CTG Belgium, so we operate from our office in Diem, which seems a very long time that we've been in the office actually, but nevertheless, that's what we call home or work or office. That's our Diem office. In Belgium, we have over 350 employees, so you'll see later on that we are divided in multiple units, and we serve, of course, a lot of clients throughout all different verticals in the market, so from banking, government to healthcare, utilities, and so on. So I explained that we have different services that we provide within CTG. CTG is quite known in the market for its testing services, but nevertheless, the other units or other services are also quite relevant. And of course, we are very proud to be part of the Department Application Information Solutions, IIS, where we provide support for our customers in custom development, but also a very big focus on the Microsoft 365 services that are available. Hence the reason why we are sponsoring this kind of events, and that we are very proud to be part of that community as well. To be able to provide our customers with the right services, we have invested in a lot of partnerships. Some that are relevant for us, of course, is the Microsoft partnership, where we have the gold status. Omnia is a very important partner for us as well. Omnia is an intranet in a box solution, so it's an add-on on top of Microsoft 365 and SharePoint Online to provide a digital workplace experience, and we also leverage that in the project that will be discussed later on. Another partnership that's relevant to pinpoint is the Keepit partnership, where we provide cloud backup solutions with that partner as well. So within our unit, we are active with everything that's related to Microsoft, so in the custom development, but also in the Microsoft 365 platform. We do development and customization, so we create Powerups going from the more straightforward Canvas apps that we use to leverage solutions for smaller situations, but also the very complex in the model-driven form of the Powerups. We are, and that's something that we notice in the market today, we are very active in performing migrations. So customers that are moving away from an on-premise environment to Microsoft 365 for all the reasons that we as specialists in Microsoft 365 are aware of, for all the benefits there. And we can see that a main driver for everything in migration was the recent pandemic or the ongoing pandemic. So a lot of customers were in need of collaborating, having a cloud platform to be able to provide that support. So that's where we can assist our customers in doing so. And for that, we have a service desk also in place. It's a delivery center where we have the possibility to provide organizations support by our expert consultants based on an agreement, and we have an SLA there so that we can respond in a certain time to provide consistency and continuity in those crucial systems for them. And of course, our training aspect is also very relevant. It's important that end users and admins receive the correct training on those platforms. So CTG, with its training academy, can provide the trainings for organizations and customers, of course. And then I'm going to ask Olivier to take over the presentation. We're going to talk about the digital open science platform. And Olivier, as a specialist and very closely involved in that project, will provide you more information on that.
Good afternoon. I suppose you can see my screen and you can hear me. Can you hear me, Dieter?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome. The Digital Open Science Platform is a Power Platform of Powerups project started in 2019-2020. So we are already developing on that platform for about 2 years. So it's a source of information for researchers and all research and innovation employees of the universities of applied sciences in Flanders. So it's the digital transformation of the manual researching to the digital researching with Microsoft technology, for sure with Powerups. The client is the University of Applied Sciences. All the 13 Flemish universities of applied sciences. Those business and stakeholders, we have direct involvement and indirect involvement. The direct involvement is 13 Flemish universities with stakeholders, the council itself with 3 stakeholders and 1 external consultant. And then, of course, we have indirect involvement, which, of course, 10 suppliers of the HR and finance applications, whether we have to direct and communicate with and synchronize with. Microsoft licenses with the EES agreement, Microsoft Azure subscriptions with the OCRE agreement, Microsoft itself, and Pressio Fishbone and Keep It, like Dieter already mentioned. The request, so the request was to develop an exchange system for data, for reporting, analysis, statistics, reference and directory between colleges, universities, research institutions, even in Europe itself, and of course the Flemish government and Europe. In order to stimulate interdisciplinary research, enable networking between researchers over the different universities of applied science itself, and find experts in specific disciplines. How did we build it up, or what was the question of the client was, okay, please provide for each high school platform that is deployed on the O365 tenant of that university itself, and that can communicate and synchronize their data with a centralized meta hub, which for each account would report it then to the government, to the Flemish government, and so on. The solution, so like I already said, we had a lot of stakeholders. We are already busy with about 2 years. We are now normally in April go live in production. So there are a lot of people involved with a different knowledge and different stakeholders. So how did we set up the governance? We set up the governance with an agile working methodology, because in the first instance, they didn't know what to build. They knew, okay, we need to digitalize, we need to report it to the Flemish government, to the for reporting purposes and for subsidies, but we don't know what we need to build. So the only way how to involve in that and have continuous involvement and process in that is with the agile working methodology. So depending on which part we are developing on that moment, we took 4-week sprints or 2-week sprints. Like I say, for the DOS framework, it's really straightforward. There's not a lot of feedback required from the stakeholders itself. So there we took 4-week sprints. For the customer engagement, like CRM and so on, then you have frequently demos. You need frequently have involvement of your stakeholders. We had also weeklies with the stakeholders on Wednesday, where we deployed and discussed all the targets and the deliverables that they required. How does the environment is built on itself? So for the users, we have three parties that we can supply. We have the internal users. Internal users, we call them the researchers that are connected to one or more University of Applied Sciences. So they are employed. Then you have the external users, because if you have a research, you don't have only the research deployed by or executed by the researchers of a University of Applied Science itself, but it can also be involved by an external partner, by example, by CTG or someone else who wants to also have additional resources in that specific research. And then, of course, we are project management, digitalization of data and documentation, but we also need finances. So we have to communicate with the finance applications of the University of Applied Sciences. We have also to communicate with the HR systems of the University of Applied Sciences. So that was a third part that we have to integrate with our own platforms to generalize and get the data required to give the project manager of the research the complete view of, okay, where are we, what is my budget, who can I have to deploy or to add to my research pool to execute some tasks. And all the data, depending on the status of the data, can be deployed to the DOS Meta or synchronized to the DOS Meta, which will report it to the Flemish government. Like you see, we have an API layer. Everywhere, even if we communicate between the different DOS hubs or the DOS hub and the DOS Meta or the external parties, we always use our own API layer. We don't let them use, by example, the Graph API directly, because it gives you an additional security and also an additional certainty. If Windows or Microsoft changes the Graph API, we can mostly take it up on our own API without that the communication with the internal software, by example, needs to be changed in their API requests. This is how we build up the DOS service. As like I said, we have the different parts, HR software, finance software, DOS Meta software. They're connecting with our HS API, so high school API with webhooks and so on. And internally, we get those requests that they are getting in an asynchronous way, and we are delivering that or grabbing the data ourselves with the Powerups API, the Windows Graph API, or the Microsoft Graph API, and the Omnia API. So no directly communication between external parties to our own environment. It's always going on our own environment itself. Another way of how we do it is, okay, the first step is a user adjust the contact details in DOS. What is going to happen? The DOS service bus is triggered. A message is sent to the webhook broker on the Azure part, and the webhook notification sending process is triggered. Based on that webhook configuration that we deployed, it will search for external applications that are requesting the changes of a contact. Then the webhook data is handled by the external application, and we send it to the external application. That application gets the webhook or the token. The token doesn't consist any data, it's just an ID. And then the token or the application itself will grab the data based on the ID we deliver. So it's always the application itself, the third-party application, that is requesting the data. We are not going directly write to or delete or update to the external application. The external application is always master, and in this case, DOS will always be slave and will just deliver or retrieve data that is requested or is sent by the third-party application. Some examples. So it's important we have two big different environments. The first environment is the environment for the research itself, the collaboration of the execution of the research. So that part is totally implemented in the Microsoft Teams environment. So we added Powerups, we added the communication side with Omnia. So for every research project that a researcher has, he will get a different Teams environment with their own governance, with the communication of, by example, for internal and external partners. Furthermore, we have also control documents. That's important for if you want to set up documentation, you want to validate that documentation, you want to publish the documentation. For DOSP, it was important when you're publishing documentation that you also could add and metadata to that selected file. So that's the most important part, the metadata of a specific report or a publication that you also have to report to the Flemish government. Furthermore, you have the Teams environment for the collaboration. In the collaboration side, you create documentation, you create reports. Those reports you enrich it with metadata, and on a certain time or a certain instance, you're also going to publicate it. That publication, we have multiple levels on how you want to publicate it. So that publication will be also publicated to the University of Applied Science repositories. So everyone who is involved in the DOSP application inside external can be reading or searching on the publications that are allowed for them. So we have also a list of published documents depending on the security or properties of the users. That's mostly for the collaboration part, where you're really executing the research itself, but also you have the governance, the administration of those specific projects. What are my budgets? Who is on the research? Do they have enough time to deploy? How is their contract, and so on? So on the Powerups part, what did we do? We created an account part where we of course have account information, the timeline, and so on, and other specific data. We have also the projects, the IDs, the partner requests where they can go in it. Furthermore, for reporting parts, we are using the Powerups dashboards that are built in Powerups, but for specific data, for specific reports that they want much more information and dynamic information, we use the Power BI reports and the Power BI dashboards that we also can implement in the Powerups solution. One side notice is when you're setting up a Powerups environment, you can choose between the Powerups environment or the Dynamics environment. We have chosen for the Dynamics environment. So even if we don't use the Dynamics business processes, we have chosen for the Dynamics environment. Why? Because the Dataverse database or your common data model of the Dynamics 365 environment is much more, or is more enriched and contains more data or tables than your Powerups common data model. Why is that so important? Because I think 3 or 4 of the applied universities of applied science are using Dynamics ERP or CRM on other applications. So for giving them the opportunity to smooth synchronize data between their own CRM or ERP systems of Dynamics and the DOSP systems of Powerups, it's easier to get the both Dataverse models the same, and that's why we are using the Dynamics data model instead of the Powerups data model. It's very important to decide that at the beginning of when you're setting up the project, to decide that with the customer. Because otherwise, I don't know if it's possible to migrate. By example, if you start with a Powerups Dataverse model and you want to migrate to a Dynamics Dataverse model, I don't know if it's really easy or if it's even possible to do that. Furthermore, we have also custom development, because we also know, and I think you all will know, if we talk about Powerups, if we talk about Dynamics, we are thinking about low code. But that's not it. It's for sure, it's 60-70% is low code, But if the client needs to have specific functionality, it's always possible to also implement or implement custom development. By example, we have a tab finance in our project account, and this part is totally completely custom developed in React, and so on. So that's very interesting also for the developers. You have the Powerups solution where you have a lot of tools and governance that are directly deployed for you, but you also have custom development where you find yourself in, and you also have your backends because we have the API services and so on. So it's a little bit a mistaken or misunderstood by a lot of developers that they think, oh, it's only low code development. It can get much more, for sure, if you have a big project like the DOS project.